Today we're going to touch on three things that I feel very strongly and that I try to help teach and promote that to not do during the September. We have a lot of things that we are trying to do in preparation for the fall. All of the hard work, all of our dedication, everything seems like it stems and leads up to this point going into the fall. And there's a lot of things to do, but these three things are points that we're going to talk about, three things in September not to do. So the first thing that we're going to talk about on the to not do in September is a very important step. I think the day and age that we are in right now is focused on, and rightly so, in and around our trail cameras. And they are a very, very powerful tool. But as I've stated in the past, and I'll continue to state this, is the trail camera has to be treated rightly so. It has to be treated rightly. And the reason for that is because it can be a very powerful tool, but it can also be that detrimental step that can ruin a property, especially in a high pressured state, such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and some of the northeastern states. So what I say by properly is I always, if you look back and through the playlist, you can find a kind of a 3 ways of properly hanging a trail camera, and I think that's an overlooked step. I think it's something that folks are just wanting to get the picture. They're not looking in depth at what the picture means. And the number one thing that we're going to talk about here today in the September don'ts is do not over pull your cards. Don't go out and do a card pull every day or every other day, just trying to stay ahead of that buck and trying to figure them out. And by doing that, guys, is you are laying down the ever so unwanted scent trail out to your location. Now, how do you cure that? I recommend doing this time of the year is having a set schedule, whether that's on a Sunday, whether that's on a Thursday, whatever day works best for you. I still recommend doing a one pull per week setup, and I really promote this time of the year. Obviously, make sure that you are scent free. And time that, because of, try to do that with rubber boots, and even if you had to wear gloves or whatever the case is, amp up that level of trying to stay scent free and trying to beat their nose. I think there's so much focus on getting out and grabbing these cards and getting back to the house or the cabin and wanting to find out what's going on, is that this is still it's a very crucial step that I think is kind of a food plot fad, if you will, that everybody wants to do it, but everybody also wants to hunt over the food plots, and there's not, it's coming, but there's not a lot of guys like me out there that are teaching and preaching the downside of that approach if it's not handled correctly. And so the number one thing, the first thing, not the number one, but the first thing that we're going to talk about is over card pulling. Just make sure, I still recommend a once a week deal. Don't overdo it. If the cameras, if we're going to take pictures of them, they're going to be on that card today, they're going to be on there a week from now. Just kind of step back, let things progress, especially if you're already in the woods. If you're watching this in a state that's already out in the woods, the openers have already started and you're off and running into the fall. The importance level is still there, but you can go in and check those. You'll go in and check those, cards. You'll be able to get in there during a huntable time, so you're not just going in for no apparent reason. Now, when I say no reason, I mean I know that we're in there trying to gather the information, but the damage that can be done by going in there too much overpowers the production of getting the camera. So limit your card pulls. Number 2 on the list is don't settle for failed food plots. I see a lot of clients, and I've done this in the past, and that's why I can relate to this. Before I started doing this on a more of a professional level with clients, and doing it more of them myself. Now, dating back to the mid 90s, I think it's 1996, if I remember right, was my first food plot that I planted on a 10-acre parcel that I grew up on here in Michigan. And it was a failed. It was obviously a buy a food plot mixture in a bag, and you know, nobody told me that I had to go the extra mile to fertilize and lime it. I mean, whoever did that is just, you're supposed to be able to make a food plot look like what is on the bag, right? Well, learned very quickly that that's not the case. That didn't work, and so since then it started this passion of mine, and is to trying to figure out how to make a you know, the best food plot on a hunter's budget, and not a farmer's budget, but on a hunter's budget. And sometimes, you know, that goes hand in hand. Sometimes you are farmers and hunters, but the majority of it, I would say, are, you know, guys like myself that don't farm full time, and you know, hunt, and don't have the equipment, don't have the big tools. And that's where this whole, you know, buffalo system, no-till thing came to be with the food plots. Now, the topic here is the number two, or the second thing, the number two thing here on my list is, you know, don't settle for these failed plots. Going into the fall, guys, you have to, especially in a high-pressured state, in a state with a bunch of small parcels, you have to have something that your neighbor doesn't. And if you're in an area where your neighbors won't, you know, through no fault of your own, but not everybody's working together, it's even more so important on your success of your fall to not take no for an answer on these fall plots. It doesn't have to happen. There are numerous ways to cure these, and that's what right now, like on the home farm, I'm doing a bunch of testing on these this year, just to show folks that if you don't have the perfect soil, if you don't have the perfect timing, and we're all busy, and what can you do, what works, what doesn't work, what can I do with a weed versus brush hog and a tractor, those kind of things, and but still have a productive plot. So if you get to September 1st and you're watching this video and you fall into that, you know, you've given up, you throw your hands up, and it's like, oh, that didn't work, food plots don't work. Well, I'm here to tell you food plots work. The reason food plots don't work are because of two things. One, they're hunted incorrectly, they're used incorrectly, they're hunted over. Two, and you create pressure, especially in a high pressured state. Two, the reasons that they don't work is because they lack the power going into the fall. You know, there are, once we get into that frost period, let's say, you know, early as I've hunted in snow here in you know, mid-Michigan, on the opener of October 1st, but you know, it seems to warm up after that. But back to the point here is you have to have something that the deer don't have in your neighboring areas or the surrounding areas that they can bank on being that meeting that tonnage requirement that they need going into the fall. Further north you go, the more important that is. If you're down south, where I was in Illinois, southern Illinois, down there, the importance isn't as strong for health conditions of the deer, because they have more of that relatively available during that time of the year. But it's just as important as an attractant on your property to meet the requirements to contain or to maintain those daylight movements. It's just as important there as it is up here. But when you're looking at a health standard, that's where, you know, that's the farther north you go, it kicks in a little bit stronger on the deer side of it as far as health. But on our side of it, as far as hunting, there's no reason that you go into the fall with a failed food plot. Guys, annual rye, winter wheat is cheap. When I say cheap, it's very cheap. I think the last bag I bought was $12 a hundred of the rye, and that guys, rye and wheat will grow in the back of your truck if the conditions are right. If you got wood chips laying in there like mine does right now, and you know, you spill you know, a handful of rye back there, you're gonna have rye growing in the back of your truck. So it doesn't take much. You can fix that. Now, if you fix things, I'm often asked this, because sometimes you do see me on these new plots adding rye into like on the test plot here at the house we've got, is I added rye into those brassicas on a very light deal. And that's because the soil condition, I need to get that soil condition where I want it to be, so then the buffalo system takes over. New plots, light sandy soil conditions, that's where the rye comes in. Now, if your soil is correct, which the test plot is already leaps and bounds ahead of where it was, or if you're in an area where your soil is correct, you don't need to start with the rye. But I'm here to tell you, with the rye in your brassicas, so just plant your brassicas in the fall, incorporated with this, the buffalo system, and you'll have a successful plot. You could have a successful plot. But the fact of the matter is, like I've said before, 90% of my clients that I go to, their soil conditions are not correct. It's 60 some clients this year, 90% of those, soil wasn't correct. That's one of the main reasons why the food plot didn't work. So what I recommend doing is right now, September, go in and any spot on there that you can get around the edges, your 2-track coming in and out of the food plot, extend it out, anything that you can gain some tonnage without getting busted. When I say 2-tracks, I want to make sure to go back and touch on that. Not a 2-track that you're walking on, not a 2-track that you're going to get too close to, that there's deer going to be using it and you're going to get busted. Any open areas, one side of your plot versus the other, one side's brassicas, the other side you're putting the grains versus the greens. And rye and winter wheat will save your food plots. And you don't need to roll it, you don't need to pack it, you don't need to do any of that. You can just take it at right now I'm about 150, maybe 200 pounds per acre. And, that sounds like a lot, but guys, I'm talking $30, if $30 can save an acre food plot. And like I said, if you're splitting that acre in half, then, you only got half of that. So you broadcast it on right before rain. That sets it in. Even right now, we've got this high moisture content in the mornings, and that stuff will seed in and it will grow. It will salvage your plots. So don't take the failed approach going into the fall. There's no need to not have something there. If you have a food plot area that's open, you've been using it, and hopefully it's in the right location, don't just settle for a fall or a failed food plot going into the hunting months. No need for that. So the number 3 thing that we're going to talk about, third thing on the list, in my opinion, the number 1 most important. This is probably something that I should have done back in August or July that I see when it starts. But it's very, very, very important to me, and it's something that I educate folks on. It seems like the more high pressured states have more of this, which I've always struggled with that. Why that is, and I think the reason is that when you're in a high pressured state, deer numbers, sightings are lower, and folks aren't used to being able to see multiple mature deer, multiple deer in general, some locations. But I think it goes back to just wanting to connect yourself with the deer and starting that process of being in the woods. So the number 1 thing here, third on my list, but number 1, do not set in your tree stands or in your blinds, in your rifle blinds, let's say, or your gun blinds, your box blinds, redneck blinds on the side of these food plots. Some of us hear this and we think, who would ever do that? But a lot of it happens a lot. And I'm reaching out to the folks that are watching this that do this. Once you elect to do that, take an evening, take the kids, whatever the case is. I see a lot of this happening. Is you go out to the blinds, and you're sitting in the box blind. That there is what starts the whole pressure, like we talked before, the whole pressure system, especially in a high pressured state. This is what gets the ball rolling. So by October 1st, you are in an October lull. And I know by saying that, some people are going to shake their heads and say, no, October lull is a deer, related issue in the middle of October that we all always deal with. Well, I'm here to tell you folks, it's not. The October lull is created by one thing and one thing only. It's created by pressure. So if you start the process of going into the woods, not from the truck, going into the woods, sitting in the blinds, you might not get busted in that blind. If that blind you're not getting busted in the fall, so the thought process is I'm not going to get busted now. The point of the matter is you're making an impact and you're making a track on your farm that does not need to be happening. But if you're leaving a footprint, a scent web, if you will, in and out of the farm for no reason other than just wanting to watch deer, you are starting the pressure. And I know a lot of, like I said, for whatever reason that is, and I think I know what that reason is, but it's always something in the back of my mind. I think what it is it's just folks, we have the itch. And I'm there. I mean, I love seeing deer too, but I want to see deer through the eyes of my cameras when I go in on a 1 week card pull, and that's where I want to see the deer. I don't want to be in that stand taking the chance of goofing something up. Is because let's relate to this. You know that you get out of work, you want to go, and you know, not a lot of times it's in the tree stand, but there is cases, and a lot of cases, especially on client properties that I go to, is the gentleman, you know, that I'm talking to, or the folks I'm talking to, him and his wife will say, hey, yeah, I sat in one, you know, tree stand one night, she sat in the other in September, and we really got a feel for what's going in there. And the further we get down the road of conversation, they get the first part of the week of September, and they think that the October lull is really deer related, and it's not. It's pressure related, because folks, let's be honest here. You're not the only one in the area doing this. You're not the only one in the area creating this pressure, especially in a high pressured state such as Michigan. And what happens is now you not only have one 40-acre, 20-acre parcel, but are some points in the Midwest where that's kind of the only pressure, and deer relate to that, and they know what the case is, and they get away with it, and because there's no one else in the area doing it, or there's, you know, you're surrounded by big properties, whatever the case is, you cannot get away with that stuff here in Michigan. And you go out and you want to, you know, see some deer, so you go out to the box blind. It's comfortable, you go to the box blind. What I'm seeing is you start connecting the dots here. So if you take the kids don't have the proper scent control, and one, it's just a rush thing. Two, is you're not in that hunting mentality yet. So the kids don't have the scent control on. You don't have the scent control on. You're not spraying your boots. You're in the blinds. So now your blinds, your windows are maybe closed or open, whatever the case is, but your blind is contaminated now with the scent. And this is what starts this whole spectrum, like I'm saying here, of going down the wrong road. So I highly recommend using your trail cameras from afar to do that scouting. If you want to see deer, take a drive around your area, because right now, folks, here within the next couple of weeks, this will slowly change, hopefully towards the like an October 1st opener. But right now, these mature bucks are still out in the fields. They're still out in the corn, they're still out on the beans, and you can see the number of deer that you want to see, and the quality of deer you want to see in your area by driving around and doing it that way, taking the drive with the family, keeping that scent contained in the pickup. That, to me, is the number one do not do in September. It's, you know, don't do that in July, or don't do that in August either when it starts. Take this one to the bank, guys. It's one that I feel that happens a lot, especially more so in high pressured states. And I really recommend this season taking that out of your equation as far as the, you know, the number one thing that I feel is a do not do in September is, you know, do not go and sit in these stands. You're starting the chain of pressure, and you want your low impact, high percentage sits is what you're looking for on a parcel, and that needs to be your parcel in the area if you want to have a successful fall. And the best way to do that is so let's review here. One, pull your cards in and out of there. I see some folks that I'm following right now on social media that I know it's the same camera, because it's the same blind in the background, or it's the same licking branch in the background, and they're pulling the card every day. It's not a cell cam, and I know they're pulling the card every day. So big no-no there. And then, you know, settling, you know, don't settle for a failed food plot. You know, get on that rye and your winter wheat program, and don't settle for a failed food plot. And the third thing, but the most important, is stay out of those blinds until you go in on a hunting setup when you mean business, not pleasure. So take that into consideration, those three things, and hopefully we're getting close. Be patient, but be productive. Thanks, guys.